Hello, everyone. We are rolling for episode 1 of the JJF1 podcast, where Jonah and Jordan talk about all things related to F1. So while this is the first episode, let's talk about ourselves. My name is Jonah. I'm a student in Montreal in marketing. I started watching F1 because of my family at the age of 7. Started looking through everything from Hamilton's first championship to the Vettel prime years to where we are now. My favorite driver is Lance Stroll. I'm currently wearing some Racing Point gear. I mean, I know the team doesn't exist anymore, but this is my favorite team. Aston Martin's currently my favorite team. Big fan of the Canadian drivers. So that's all about me. I'm going to hand it over to Jordan.
What's up, everybody? So my name is Jordan. I'm host number 2 of the JJF1 podcast. And I kind of got into F1 a little bit a different way. I got into F1 because of the I'm not like this crazy fan that's been a part of F1 for such a long time. I literally watched the Netflix show and I fell in love with it all over again. I used to like when I was a kid, fell off the radar, watched the show, loved it. And then that got me into researching about the history, the Hakkinen years, Niki Lauda's years. I love it. And now, just like Jonah, I'm a big Canadian fan and I'm excited to share that passion with you all. And yeah, Lance Stroll is my favorite driver. Aston Martin is my favorite team. I like Nicholas Latifi too. Got to pay respect to my Canadian boy, and so that's why I cheer for Williams as well. But yeah, I like a wide variety of the drivers, and very excited to do this with you, Jonah.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about Lance Stroll as being the Canadian driver, but we keep on forgetting that Nicholas Latifi is there too. I mean, look, he had a weird first year, I guess we could say.
I think it was his first Q2 appearance.
Yeah, exactly.
At Imola.
Yeah, we're recording this between Imola and Portugal, and in Imola it was his first appearance in Q2 ever. So hopefully it looks good for both Canadian drivers this year. I mean, right now Lance is the only one with points, but hopefully it continues. I mean, also Williams, they haven't scored points since 2019, but we're gonna see how things go after that.
And stay tuned, guys, to hear our hot takes on what we think of the teams coming up this year. This year is going to be a very interesting year. So, and we have some very interesting predictions about where the teams are going to end up by the end of the season by Abu Dhabi. Where's Williams going to be? We have some hot takes on what we think is going to happen. Stay tuned, guys.
I'm very intrigued to see your hot takes. I have some pretty good takes. I think they're not gonna be as hot as yours, but we're gonna see. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the news that came out today that the F1 teams, the FIA, everyone approved the new sprint qualifying format for 3 races that are going to happen this year. So the way that it's going to happen is on Friday, we're going to have free practice 1 for an hour. And then after that, it's going to be qualifying on Friday. That sets the grid for sprint qualifying using the same format that is currently used for qualifying for the race. And then on Saturday, there's practice 2 and then sprint qualifying. So which the order will have been determined from the qualifying on Friday, which would be an 100-kilometer race. And then whoever finishes in that order. So that order is going to be the starting grid for the race on Sunday. And then the Sunday is just going to be the normal race distance, just as a normal Grand Prix weekend would end. So, Jordan, what do you think about the format? I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier about how you feel about it, but I want to go deeper into this because I feel like we have different opinions on it.
Yeah, so we do have different opinions. I'm of the opinion that I'm personally don't fix what isn't broken. So I really love the classic format. As everybody here knows now, we have 3 practices leading up to qualifying, 2 on Friday, 1 in the morning on Saturday before qualifying. And that gives the teams a lot of time to really see what's up with their cars. They have 3 60-minute sessions, it's 3 hours to really figure out what's with their cars to get the best position on the track. As we know, qualifying is very important for the race. And I think that because, first of all, I have issues with don't fix what isn't broken, and also issues with the sprint race formula itself. I really like the fact that we're seeing two different events happening during the weekend. We're having a competition essentially for the fastest lap in qualifying with the Q1, Q2, Q3 structure. And then we're having the cars battle out against each other. It's two very different things. And we see the cars compete in two very different ways. So I really enjoy the classic qualifying than the race, because we see the two different sides of the cars, seeing how they compete in both formats. The race, the sprint race, is a mix of both. And I'm really not a fan of it because it's more of a race than it is a qualifying session. And I don't think that that should determine the starting grid, because it's so similar to what the race is going to look like. If I see the sprint race on a Saturday, I'm going to know very well what happens on the Sunday. And isn't that what F1's all about? F1's all about suspense. It's all about what, not knowing what's happening.
I mean,
for that reason alone, I am very against sprint qualifying. Now I'm gonna add a layer onto this.
You're trying to save yourself here from
Look, you know what, we're gonna dive into later, because I'm gonna talk about tracks, I'm gonna talk about other things. We got a heck of an episode for you guys tonight. So Jonah, I'm gonna wait for your response.
Well, look, I'm gonna say that I'm completely on the opposite side of the debate as you are. I'm 100% for this. I honestly really like this format. I mean, I'm thinking of this in two ways, okay? Number one, you're thinking for the people who watch F1 at home. You're having an opportunity to watch racing twice in a weekend instead of once in a weekend. I love that idea. I mean, in F2, I think, well, there's qualifying and then there are two races. There's the sprint race and then the feature race. And I honestly love that format. I think that it leaves the window open for different winners each time. And just racing in general is so much more interesting when you have a grid that's mixed up throughout the entire weekend. I mean, it probably won't be at the front because welcome to F1, but it'll probably be really mixed up in the lower positions. And eventually you could have people moving up to fight for podiums at the end of the race or at the end of Sunday. I'm also thinking about people who go to the circuit. I mean, right now we're not getting fans at most circuits.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, well, I mean, Canada might not even get a race, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But people who go to the circuit on Fridays, I think that they should be getting a better viewing spectacle when they show up to the circuit. Because I've been to Friday practice. It's fun when it's fun when it's good weather, when it's nice. You get to just chill and watch cars go around the track. But at the same time, I mean, if it's raining, I mean, I went to practice in Montreal when it was raining, and it wasn't exactly fun because when it's red flagged, especially in practice, you don't get to get that time back. You just need to go straight into, okay, it rained for an hour, so you're just not going to be practicing. Have fun. And also, I think that teams right now get too much practice. I think that leaving a lot of data off the table and not giving it to F1 teams through eliminating a practice session is going to be really great in terms of unpredictability. And we've had over the last 6-7 years a really predictable grid. Hopefully removing a practice session from that is going to make the grid a little bit less predictable. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Lando Norris gets second on merit and not by exceeding track limits. Or it's a battle of whoever knows what's going on. And I feel like this this format is really a really good idea for racing, because I love an F2 weekend and I want to see F1 weekends go like that.
So Jonah, my response for you for this unpredictability, because it all comes down, really what the fundamentals that we disagree on is the unpredictability of it. And what I'm going to tell you is 2 words: race pace. You're able to see race pace at the sprint race. It's like having 2 races. And essentially, when you have that race pace, given that there's no red flag, given that there's no safety car, given there's no VS, virtual safety car, you're able to really see the race pace on that specific circuit. We agree that Williams, had there not been, Nicholas Latifi crashing on the first lap, had there not been that big crash with Bottas on lap 33, I think it was, we agree that Williams would have been competitive on the Imola circuit. So, as you know, certain cars are more competitive on certain circuits as a result of downforce, as a result of certain turns that are suited better towards the car itself, fundamentals of it. So we can see more of that during the sprint race, and we see what their actual pace is during the sprint race. And because we are able to see that, we can then predict what the car is like in a race at that certain track the following day. And that's where I'm coming from.
I don't think so, because it's 100 kilometers, right? It's not an entire race. I think at that point,
right. So the only difference there is that in an entire race, there's a big likelihood to be red flagged. There's a bigger likelihood to have the pack crushed up together with a safety car, because you're racing for a long period of time, and there's more chances of there to be collisions and spin-offs and X, Y, and Z. So yes, maybe it would be different. It's different because it's a longer race. Who knows what would have happened in Monza had there not have been a red flag with Charles Leclerc.
That's
right?
True.
So, and a sprint race would have been shorter than that. So look, the only thing is that would really alter my theory is this red flag, the safety car that could happen, which are very likely at high speed circuits like a Monza or a Silverstone or well, not Silverstone less, but a Monza, for example, or a Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
See, the thing is that I feel like F1, by creating this sprint race, is trying to take away, especially by setting it at 100 kilometers, is trying to take away. I feel like after 100 kilometers is when really the pack starts to split at a normal race. 100 kilometers is normally like somewhere around a third or something around between a third and a half of normal race distance. And on top of that, F1 is forcing their teams during the sprint qualifying race to only use the soft compound. So I feel like you're taking away a strategic element that you would normally get in a race because a race is so long. And you're just saying to your drivers, listen, push. I don't care what happens, just push and get yourself far further up the grid than you possibly could. And I that's what I enjoy about this. And I think that setting it at 100 kilometers, making the teams only use the softs, taking away that strategic tire management battle is probably going to make it a lot more interesting and probably counter your unpredictability argument.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to see. But on the note of soft tires are going to be very interesting to see at circuits that they're rumored to be testing on. Jonah, they're rumored to be testing this whole idea of the sprint race at a circuit like Monza. Silverstone are the most likely circuits according to the F1, the Formula1.com article that I read today. So what do you think of having it at circuits that are very high speed like Monza, lots of twists and turns at Silverstone? What are you thinking, Jonah, with these sort of proposed circuits? What do you think the impact is? What do you like about those circuits with this structure?
Yeah, one thing that the article said is that it's going to be 2 European races and 1 non-European race. So I hope that the non-European race is also going to be a good track. Like, for example, if they test sprint qualifying at Abu Dhabi, that's it's going to be so boring. I don't think that you would want more racing at Abu Dhabi than we have now. But I think that, especially at Monza, I mean, you are giving people, you're giving drivers and you're giving teams the opportunity to show their speed, and showing people's opportunity to push. And I think that especially at a track like Monza, where it's solely based on speed, you get to see where people are going to really thrive, or where teams have really shown their strength, where you don't really need to focus on getting the car throughout the entire distance. You just need to get them through the 100 kilometers, go back in the garage, fix it, and then get ready for Sunday. So I think Monza is a good track for it. Silverstone, I don't know much. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent about Silverstone. I feel like it would be a pretty good track just because it's so historic. I feel like the historic part of Silverstone, like it's been on every single calendar since the beginning of F1 or something like that.
It's the first Formula One race.
Yeah, actually. Exactly. The first Formula One race. It's been on the calendar every single year. So I feel like from a historical standpoint, this is where it started. This is where it's going to change. I like the idea. In terms of the circuit itself, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent. I mean, I would have rather that it be at a track like Baku, because I love Baku and it's such a technical circuit. Well, it's a mix of technical and huge straights. So I feel like it would be kind of like Monza, but also because of places like the Castle Chicane, it would be extremely difficult through 100 kilometers to try to get everything around. But I'm excited. I really like Monza. Silverstone, I'm like, I want to see how you feel.
Yeah, so look, I'm against the sprint race idea to begin with, but should I be for it, I would say Monza is a interesting circuit to test it at.
Okay, what's your definition of interesting
so
here?
Look, I'm actually for and against Monza. I'm against Monza because I think that Monza is probably my personal, I would say to my top 5 of races in the year. It's maybe not my favorite track, but it's definitely my top 5 of races in the year.
Monza's a crazy season. It's a crazy Monza, track.
It's the temple of speed. And as we saw last year, anything can happen. We had, I think it was the second time winner at the time, Charles Leclerc winning in the Ferrari. It's crazy with the Tifosi there. When it's not COVID, the atmosphere is unreal. Long straights, 3, classic chicanes. Because it's such a sought after race on the calendar, that's why I'm against it. Because of the hype around Monza, not because of the technicalities of Monza, because of the hype around it. It's the classic F1 race. If you're going to watch 5 races throughout the year, you're watching Monaco. All right. You're watching the British Grand Prix. You're watching, for us, the Canadian Grand Prix.
Of course.
Monza is on that list for the average F1 fan that is in Europe, that is in the Middle East, that is in North America. Monza is on the calendar. So because they're not keeping the classic format for the Monza race, where it's going to be probably the most watched race of the season, that's why I'm against it.
I have a counter to that, but I'm going to listen to the rest of it.
I am for it because should I be for the sprint race, and should the sprint race happen, these straights and the chicanes are fantastic to see 2 days worth of racing on. Right? I can draw Monza. Like, I love Monza, and I would love to see 2 races on Monza in a week. We're spoiled if we see 2 races Monza in a weekend, right? Now, when it comes to the other tracks, Jonah, if we have 2 races at Abu Dhabi, I'm a big F1 fan. Probably wouldn't watch. It's unfortunate to say. If we had, it's a non-European track, maybe Mexico, 2 long straights, very interesting with a bunch of twists and turns in the middle, very interesting. you know, it's even maybe Jeddah. Jeddah might be a really, they're trying out a
I
new
feel like
race circuit.
they could
Why not
definitely try
out
that
a
at
new
Jeddah.
format?
Yeah.
That would be my bold prediction, maybe that it would happen at Jeddah. So I agree with you. It really depends on the circuits. I'm not going to get into my Silverstone takes right now because there's more to talk about. But it's interesting that the track choices for those reasons. Yeah.
I'm gonna counter what you said before, saying that Italy is one of the most watched races. If you're a casual F1 fan, you're probably gonna watch Monza. You're probably gonna watch Silverstone. I think that's exactly why they tried to put it in Monza and in Silverstone. Think of the viewers, Jordan. Look, F1 is trying to grow its base, right? Its base of fans. And I feel like by putting these sprint qualifying races in such popular races like Monza, like Silverstone, people will get more hooked to it because they get to see 2 days of racing, whether it be, sure, one is going to be shorter than the other. You are getting more viewers to show up on a Saturday to watch F1. It's genius, in my opinion, from a marketing perspective. I'm a marketing student. Surprise, surprise. I feel like from a marketing perspective, it's a genius idea. But now let's go to the racing of it. Who is going to benefit from this new format? I'm very curious to see your answers, Jordan, but I'm pretty confident in what I think.
I have a hot take. Who will benefit the most? Surprise, surprise. Mercedes will widen the gap hard.
Okay.
It is so unfair because the gap will be so large if there's a sprint race.
To be fair, you're only getting 4 points for first place and like third for second or something like that.
Well, yes, we'll get into the point system later. I think in terms of starting position and then getting that pole position, I think that in qualifying, we saw this year in the two first Grand Prix. There's not a large sample size we have so far, but the Red Bulls are very competitive when it comes to clean air racing. Max Verstappen, when he got the clean air in Imola on the first lap, he had his car tilted, started in second gear, got clean air, and zoomed past. And when he had the restart after the red flag, he had clean air the entire time. They're great in clean air racing. 2 and 3 in Imola, pole position in Bahrain. They're great in clean air racing. So I think the qualifying structure of Q1, Q2, Q3, where they have clean air and they're able to qualify in clean air, I think that benefited them actually so far this year. In terms of race pace, Hamilton put on a clinic in Imola.
He crushed it.
When he has clean air, when he has dirty air, Hamilton is on another level. And for that reason, I think that Mercedes is just going to widen that gap even more because they're going to be racing in dirty air. And if he has somebody in front of him, he'll be able to get past. I'm very confident.
You're confident in Hamilton, but the question is, are you that confident in Bottas?
That's a very so stay tuned to the JJF1 podcast because we're going to have some driver rankings, our opinions on certain drivers coming up later on in the year. So stay tuned for that. So I'm not going to really get into the details of what my opinions are, but I really see I see a light at the end of the tunnel for Bottas.
Okay.
Very unpopular opinion, but I do. I like Bottas. I like his personality. I think he's a great guy. I think that Bottas has been very underwhelming this year. I don't know if it's because of confidence. I think it's mostly because of confidence. I know it was funny at the end of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Del Made in Italy. Toto Wolff basically said that he thought that he joked on Sky Sports. I don't know if you guys watch on Sky Sports. I do a bit of of both on the F1 TV app. But he said in the post-race interview that George was trying to get into the Mercedes seat a bit too fast. And I think that Bottas, he reads a lot of social media. He sees these comments. He's not blind to it. And unfortunately, I think it gets to him. So personally, I think that's the reason for his struggles. Again, that's a conversation for another time. I'm confident in the Mercedes car as a whole because I just see how it drives when it's in a race condition. Its race pace is on another level. No other team is able to storm back from what was it, 8th or 9th place on the grid. In I don't know if it was half the race was left or a third of the race was left. Nobody's able to do that besides the Mercedes AMG Petronas Motorsport team.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not possible. So that's my take on it.
That's I feel like Valtteri is just gonna. He kept on saying he's a new man. He's ready to challenge. I don't know, man. We'll see what happens.
I really like him. I think he's poised. In normal times, he comes off as very poised. He comes off as very calm. He comes off as very focused.
That's very Finnish.
Yeah, he's a Finnish guy, So for that reason, just for his approach to the sport, I admire it. I really do. I think, you can be that way, but still have your confidence take a hit. I think that's the main reason for his struggles this year. But again, guys, stay tuned to the JJF1 podcast because we're going to be having some great takes on what we think of the drivers, what we think is going to happen in 2021.
Well, going back to who I think is going to benefit from this. Hear me out. Lance Stroll and Aston Martin. Okay? I'm not saying this as a fanboy. I am saying this because Otmar Safnauer has said since he took over the team that they don't focus a lot on qualifying in their car development. They focus a lot on the race. And with having the opportunity to race more, I think that's definitely going to benefit the Aston Martin team since they have their car so focused on the race. You could definitely have, for example, Lance starting in P10, apparently is the norm. And over the course of 100 kilometers, end up moving up 2 or 3 places or even 4 at the end of sprint qualifying. And then in the race, fight for even more points when you get to the Grand Prix by moving 2 or 3 positions more. So I think that it'll be beneficial for a team like Aston Martin that is so race focused. Especially, you go back to last year where Checo drove the hell out of that car every single race and showed that car is meant for racing, even though the qualifying wasn't the greatest. Now that Lance has taken that baton from Checo of leading the Aston Martin team, or at least so it looks like, I think that the team as a whole, but more specifically Lance, could definitely benefit from that, from moving up, having more opportunities to race.
So on that note, I'm actually going to throw back kind of a similar question that you gave to me. Yeah, sure, Lance, he's been doing great. What do you think of Seb? How do you think this impacts Seb, if that's your theory?
Look, I think that it's a 50-50 of what could happen to Seb. It could be that Seb has only raced twice in that car. Could be that he's just not used to it yet, and that maybe we'll go into Portimao in a few days from now, and he'll get it into Q3 and maybe qualify in the top 5. I don't know. Anything is possible, but it could help him in that way. That Vettel, he's had a little bit of difficulty adjusting to new cars, but once he gets the hand of it, he'll definitely show, he could show that he won 4 championships with Red Bull. He won races at Ferrari.
And a lot of them.
Yeah, exactly. He's shown that he can work a car through a race. And it could help him in that way, using his experience to get through the pack if he starts poorly. However, it could also hurt his chances because, I don't know, 2020 was rough for Seb. I felt bad for him, even though when I was watching him winning 4 championships, I was like, Vettel again, you won. Wow. So it could go the other way at the same time, where he could just completely screw it up in sprint qualifying, and then completely ruin his chances of doing anything good on Sunday.
I don't disagree. And speaking of Sunday, we have a Sunday coming up. We have the Portuguese Grand Prix, Gran Primo del Portugal.
Yes,
is coming up. I think it's the Heineken Portuguese Grand Prix officially. And it's a big weekend coming up because personally, I love the Algarve circuit. The twists and turns, the mountainous terrain. I think it's fantastic. I think it should be in the calendar almost every year. I love it.
Bring back the Grand Prix of Europe. Let's put Portimao in the Grand Prix of Europe. Like that, Nürburgring, like they alternate between Portimao and Nürburgring so that Hockenheim gets its spot back.
Guys,
or whatever.
So
Estoril, Jerez.
we can't give them all of our thoughts just yet on the tracks, Jonah. But now that we have Portugal coming up, what are you expecting for Portugal? What's your take on what you think is going to happen? And do you have maybe a bold prediction for us?
All right, bold prediction: Kimi Räikkönen podium. No, I'm kidding. I mean, just to touch on that, Kimi Räikkönen made up 10 places in one lap in Portimao.
It's true, first lap.
Sure. I actually forget where he finished in that race, but
all I remember was seeing Carlos Sainz, I think, in first place from like lap 1.
Yeah, exactly. Carlos Sainz was leading for 6 laps,
and I was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to
let's talk about Portimao. I think that it's going to be a really interesting race. I'm really happy that it showed up on the calendar. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, it ended up on the calendar because they needed to fill races, but it gave us a great race. And Lewis Hamilton won his 92nd win last year at Portimao. So it's gonna be great. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be a Mercedes track though. I feel like it could definitely be a Mercedes win. I feel like the Red Bull car could have a little bit more difficulty on this track. In terms of the midfield, though, I think that this is going to be where Alpine actually show that they're a legit F1 team and that they didn't basically have a plan B of choosing Fernando Alonso and taking him out of retirement. If there is a circuit for Fernando Alonso specifically to show that he is worthy of being back in F1, it's going to be this one. I think that there are a lot of people that are currently disappointed in how Alpine is doing. I think that this is their chance to redeem themselves. So there's an opportunity for Alpine there. I don't know. I don't talk a lot about Ferrari. I don't know why, but I feel like they'll be okay. Probably Charles Leclerc is going to be typically P4 as he always does, just pushing that car. Shout out to the tractor memes from last year. But yeah, I think this is really going to be a weekend for Alpine to show they deserve to be back where they are.
Interesting take.
What do you think about Portimao?
So I agree with you for a lot of what you said. I think it's going to be a Mercedes-dominated track. What I do think, though, in terms of the rest of the pack, I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to have a showing like we've never seen in a Renault. I think he's going to actually show what he's capable of when he has
a McLaren?
When he has a solid car that achieved P3 in the Constructors last year, that got better. showed by Lando Norris's P3 in the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Yeah, I think Daniel Ricciardo is going to have an absolute showing. He showed it in his early days when he was younger. I forget if it was in European F3 or Renault. I don't know if he raced in Formula 1, but regardless, it was when he was in younger days. I think he won. Was the championship at the circuit, or he won?
I remember he was the only driver that had a recorded lap of him going around the circuit before they ended up going to.
I think he won some sort of championship there. I'm not 100% sure. Gotta do research, but I think that Daniel Ricciardo, because he raced there in his early days, I think he knows the track the best, and I think that because now he has a car under him, I think we can see maybe a podium from Daniel Ricciardo. I think that's my bold prediction for the weekend.
Did he get the podium in Portugal last year? Was that where he ended up on the podium?
No, he got the podiums in Germany and
yes.
at Imola.
Yes.
It wasn't in Portugal.
So,
but I think that he's going to have a nice showing this weekend. I think there's a very large potential for a podium. As we know, the Renault car didn't really perform to its expectations last year. It had its struggles the year before that, where they were expecting, not consistent podium finishes, but some podium finishes throughout the year. They didn't get any podiums in 19, if I believe. And in 2020, they were probably expecting more, and they ended up finishing P5 in the constructors. So I think that Daniel Ricciardo didn't have a car under him that he could really, get to know and get to grips with. I think that now he does. I think he actually believes in the long-term project of McLaren. I think he actually believes in the new Mercedes power of McLaren. And I think he really believes in the P3 that they finished last year, that they could build on that. And it shows that they can.
Yeah.
And I think that because he knows the circuit best, I think he's going to have a show.
Maybe he's going to win, Jordan. Maybe he's going to win.
I don't know. I really think it's going to be a Mercedes-dominated track.
Hey, look, you talked about
Hamilton win.
You talked about Mercedes dominance. I mean, McLaren is now back in a Mercedes engine, so could be.
Who knows? I guess we'll have to see, and you guys will have to see our reaction.
What was the joke last year in? I think it was Hungary, where Hamilton and Bottas finished 1 and 2, and then Stroll and Perez finished. This was qualifying. Hamilton, Bottas 1, 2, Stroll, Perez 3 and 4, and then everyone saying, "Oh, it's Mercedes that managed to lock out the first 2 rows."
Yeah.
Hey, maybe that could happen in qualifying. Hamilton. I mean, look, I don't know what's going on with Bottas, but let's say hypothetically, Hamilton, Bottas P1 to P2, Norris and Ricciardo P3, P4. It'll be interesting.
We'll see. I guess you guys have to watch, and you guys have to watch the next episode of the JJF1 podcast, where we'll be reacting to the Gran Premio del Portugal.
The Portuguese Grand Prix.
The Heineken Portuguese Grand Prix of 2021.
Yeah. Do we have any final things to close off with, or just a sum up of what we've learned so far?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm thankful. I really thank everybody for listening to this, and I'm really excited to continue this. And this is just episode number 1, guys. So I'm really excited and I'm really happy. These are really our longer episodes, where we're going to be talking a lot about the news that just broke. We're going to have some race reviews, and we're going to be talking also a lot about miscellaneous topics. Who's my favorite driver? Who's my top 5? And who are my top 5 drivers? What's my favorite track? Who do I think really deserves a redemption in F1? You guys will have to stay tuned and find out.
You know what? I think that's a top in terms of redemptions. That's something that you know a lot more about than I do. So I think that'll really be a Jordan guided episode. But like Jordan said, this is only episode 1. Hopefully this gets up on Spotify in time for the Grand Prix. And hopefully we get everything settled so that we post the content that we want for our fans, and make sure to like our social media page, the JJF1 podcast on Facebook. I'm gonna post eventually whenever this episode comes out, and yeah, that's all that I have. Also, so congratulations, everyone! You made it through our first episode, and we'll see you on Sunday after Portimao.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
See ya.